All right, let's go to the question of the week, and the question of the week and the we have to talk about are kind of related, but we'll do the question of the week first. And your question was: has the term robbery become the most overused term in MMA? I mean, the way you're asking the question, it's loaded, right? Like we're supposed to answer one way, and I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, I think a lot of people use this term when you see a fight where the consensus is that one guy won and then they give the fight to the other guy, and a lot of times that isn't really a robbery. And why don't you I mean, we've talked about it before, but explain why.
Yeah, I mean, I think robbery's become the most overused term just because it feels like it's a term being thrown out every week,
Yeah.
and this week especially with the Patty and Jared Gordon, haven't watched that fight. A second fight, I don't know that I want to put that in robbery territory right yet, right yet. Even though live in the moment, yeah, it was a robbery. It probably still technically is, but it's hard to say because it's close fight. It's just there's too many fights that are close and subjective, and and
Yeah.
uh, and perspectives. A lot of perspectives are different. I know. I've watched plenty of fights where I've been cage side and then watched it back on TV, and I've had a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's all about a perspective. And these guys who are sitting there cage side, they have a completely different view than anybody who's watching at TV. And sometimes you see different things differently. Especially if you're paying like close attention to some stuff like that happens on the ground. And so I think the scoring so debated these days that people are throwing the robbery term out too much. I think it's been used too much this year, which is kind of getting past the point of it having frustrating usage.
I think the what happens is sometimes people look at a bad scorecard and then like kind of conflate that with a robbery, even though the right guy won.
Agreed. Agreed.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so you have like, a split decision where one card is so bad, and then they'll look at maybe another fight on the same card where the wrong guy won, and then oh, it's a robbery, it's fixed, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, there's people out there that think that UFC is, fixed, and the
Those people
top
are
two,
morons.
they are, but the top two fights on this past weekend's card doesn't help that.
Yeah. No.
you know, when like their golden boy poster child that they want for the next 5 years is getting a gifted decision, and then the main event goes to a split decision when they didn't want a split draw, when they didn't want either guy to win. It kind of, I mean, I'm sure they would have been happy with one of those guys getting a knockout, but they wouldn't have really been happy with, either. If that fight hadn't have gone to a decision, I think Dana's probably happier that the title's vacant than if Uncle Ivan got a decision, for instance. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. He seemed pretty pissed off, but I think he's more than happy to just crown a new champion next month.
Yeah.
But I agree. It's overused. And it's just people that are kind of ignorant. But the actual robberies that we get, I mean, when it's a robbery, it's like when you have, 1 out of 25 reporters scoring a fight one way and all 3 judges score it that way. That's a robbery.
Yeah.
Most of the time, not always, but most of the time.
Yeah.
Like that's a robbery. But when it's like, when it's a split decision and like 75% of the people think that the guy that lost won, that's usually just a close fight.
Yeah.
So I agree. That said, there are some bad judges. And we have to talk about the judging issues and the use of Doug Crosby this weekend. As we mentioned earlier in the show, Crosby scores a fight, the main event of Bellator. He scores at 50-45 for the guy that the other 2 judges had winning the fight, and then gets flown across the country. I think it was across the country
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
Vegas,
From Mohegan Sun to Las
from
Vegas.
Mohegan Sun to Las Vegas to judge the co-main event here. And he and right, that was the one. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was
Yeah.
the Pimblett fight.
Yeah.
And he gave the fight to Patty Pimblett along with the other 2 judges, but there's nobody else. I mean, I assume I assume Jaron Villel was busy, and thank God for that. But yeah, Crosby is not a good judge.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up Crosby in general on this, but yeah, go ahead.
I've got his record up here. He's had 3, 5, 6, 7 dissenting decisions this year. And that doesn't even include bad decisions like the Pimblett Gordon, which wasn't a dissenting decision,
Yeah.
but it was a bad decision. But he scored that one. He had Charles Johnson beating Zuma Goloff. He had Nascimento beating Boser. I can go on. Even the fight we talked about earlier is Magulov. He had him beating Kudaladze. So yeah, it's I don't know, and he's not the only one. I mean, we talked about Jaron Villel. He's terrible. He's terrible ref, terrible judge. I don't know. I don't know what they can do. They need new judges, I think.
Yeah.
But
Well, the first thing about Douglas Crosby is he used to be a judge in Nevada, and then his license expired and it didn't get renewed. So there was a period where he wasn't judging, and then he applied for a judging license last year, like he does every year, and Nevada brought him back, which at the time was bad, which a lot of people in Nevada didn't agree with, because he's got the reputation of being a very bad judge. Uh, he's got the reputation of judging it however he feels like it, not within the criteria of the sport. Just just how I feel like judging it. I'm gonna judge. There's no consistency in how he judges fights. It's all over the place, and he has openly talked about he was a previous guest on Chael Sonnen's podcast. When Chael Sonnen had a podcast, he would openly talk about just not giving a fuck, basically.
You want to know? I've just been looking up. He had 2 fights in 2 shows in Bellator in 2020 where he gave the losing fighter a 30-27 scorecard, and the other 2 judges had the other guy winning.
Yeah,
and one of those, the other 2 judges had it 30-27 for the other guy.
Yeah,
that was Henry Corrales and Brandon Gertz.
Yeah, his judging is all over the place, but I also want to bring up this issue because it directly involves his situation this weekend. But there's been other times where this has happened too. There should be no official person, whether it's a referee or a judge, who has flown across country in less than 24 hours to work 2 different shows. They need to these commissions need to set a hard rule and do it like the NFL does with their officials. Sorry, you sent me a link. I got a DM from you, and it kind of distracted me for a second.
But anyway,
that
fight. Well, no, that fight I was talking about, it was all the reporters had it 30-27, including 130-26, and Douglas Crosby scored it 30-27 for the other guy.
Yeah, but back on that, like NFL, they bring in all their referees more than 24 hours. They bring them in. The games are on Sunday. They bring them in Friday night, and give them a full day of rest Saturday for Sunday. And the reason is they want the people who are in charge of calling the game, calling the action, focused, refreshed, not tired, just 100% on. And that's what we need in MMA. We want absolutely. These referees and these judges to be fresh, focused, 100% on. It's hard to be 100% on whenever you're doing a show in Connecticut, and it's got a late finish. He's probably flying out first thing Saturday morning. So he's probably up all night, basically. Because I mean, I've done the whole thing where I work a late fight, a fight night on Saturday, and you're there at the arena super late, and you're having the first flight out Sunday morning. You don't sleep at all Saturday night. So it's probably a situation with that. So you're probably getting into Vegas tired, having to run all over the place, get checked in hotel, or if he lives in Vegas, whatever, you're super tired. Like, you're not focused. You're not 100%. He shouldn't have even been judging on Saturday night.
No, and then
it's up to these. It's also up to these, and it's probably like you only make X amount of money, judging a card. You don't make it per fight, you make it per card. And some of these guys are going to take work as they can get it, because they need the money. But these commissions should also reach out and be like, hey, are you working any other cards this week or this weekend? Blah blah blah, stuff like that before they actually assign judges.
How many judges do they put on a card?
There's usually about 8 to
Okay.
10,
So I was gonna
somewhere in that
say, like, I
range.
mean,
Somewhere in
I
that
don't
range.
have the whole thing, but there,
Usu-
because only these top two fights went to a decision, but
Yeah.
there was at least 6. Like,
Yeah,
why did they
usually
need to fly Doug Crosby across the country? Like,
usually each judge has 4 to 6, 4 to 5
okay,
assignment, depending on
yeah,
how many fights there are
yeah,
on a card. But like on a standard 13 fight card, it's kind of like the referee. It's kind of like the referees. How
yeah,
you'll
yeah,
see Mark Smith in there for 4 out of the 13 fights. The judges will probably have like 4 to 6, somewhere in that range.
yeah. So, yeah, I agree that they got to clean up the judging. I don't know. Yeah, I just they got to do something because this just makes them look bad, in my opinion. So, and obviously yours too.